In 1994, 5-year-old Lucas Danner disappeared from the Monroe YMCA's locker room. One moment he was there, the next, gone. No one saw him walk out. No alarm ever sounded. Only a small red lanyard and a weathered locker key remained, hanging silently on a hook, their stillness echoing through the empty room. For 30 years, the disappearance haunted the building like a ghost, a cold case buried beneath peeling paint and distant whispers, until today's renovation would uncover something no one could have imagined. Renovation workers began draining the murky, algae-stained pool on a humid July morning. The greenish water, glinting strangely in the sunlight, seemed to warn them of what lay beneath. Miguel Sandoval, uneasy, knelt beside a faint seam running across the pool's floor. Foreman Jerome Petty joined him. Both uneasy, they recognized an odd panel hidden in what was supposed to be a solid slab poured in 1973. Miguel's gloved hand pressed on the seam, feeling the unsettling hollow beneath concrete. "Looks like someone patched this long after the original build," Jerome murmured, eyes widening. They paused. This wasn't just a crack. It was deliberate. When Miguel freed the first aged bolt, a hollow echo rippled through the floor. Their hearts skipped. Below, something waited. They summoned the city inspector. At midday, Aaron Delgrave peeled back the last rusted bolts, revealing a square hatch 6 feet wide. Inside, stale metallic air hissed as he descended into near darkness. 30 seconds later, his voice cracked through the quiet, urgent, and incredulous. "Call the police. Now." By early afternoon, Detective Issa Moreno stood at the hatch's edge. Delgrave placed evidence on the hood of his truck. A pale blue towel stamped with the YMCA logo, tiny swim trunks, a pair of faded Velcro sandals. She picked up the towel with trembling, gloved fingers. In the dim afternoon light, she whispered the name scrawled inside the latter, Lucas. That evening, local news outlets buzzed. A hidden vault beneath the old pool, decades-old belongings from a missing child. The mother of Lucas Danner, then just 5 years old, was contacted. Elsewhere in Monroe, a man watched the coverage on his phone. His hands shook, tears welled as he recognized the familiar towel and trunks, the final traces of a silence he'd held onto for 3 decades. Back at the police station, it was nearly impossible to believe. 57 VHS tapes, each labeled Room Day Cheer with Lucas's initials, discovered tucked under that grim mattress in a 10 by 10 foot cinderblock chamber deep beneath the pool. As Detective Moreno held the first tape, her breath visible in the cold room, she braced herself. "We need to watch this now," she said, voice soft yet resolute, just as the old CRT monitor flickered to life, holding a secret nearly 30 years old. The tape clicked to life with a burst of static, then a jarring jump cut. The screen revealed a dim room. Concrete walls painted a faded pink, familiar toys scattered across the floor. A single mattress lay on the floor, stained and thin. A child sat cross-legged atop it. Lucas, just 5 years old, sandy hair neatly trimmed into a bowl cut. He wore the same red swim trunks and blue towel found only yesterday. His eyes flickered uncertainly, scanning the room, the camera. Then a voice, soft but rehearsed, filtered in from behind the lens. "Say your name for the tape, buddy." Lucas hesitated. "Lucas. Full name." "Like we practiced." "Lucas Danner." "Good boy." The voice was unnervingly calm. Too calm. Lucas looked toward the camera again. "When can I go back to my mom?" "Soon," the voice answered gently. "We're just going to play a few games first." The tape ended in a haze of static. Detective Moreno sat alone in her office, the transcript trembling slightly in her hand. Bile rose in her throat. She had witnessed cruelty before, cases that stuck with her long after the files closed, but this was different. This wasn't just a child gone missing. This was captivity, psychological entrapment, a secret life engineered under concrete, designed for a child to forget the world above. And someone had filmed every moment of it, carefully cataloging each day as if it were part of a routine, a ritual. This was never meant to be discovered. A knock shattered the stillness. Detective Ron Haskins stepped inside, holding a folder. 3 other cases, he said grimly, all tied to Monroe YMCA between 89 and 94, all boys, ages 5 to 8. 2 had been labeled drownings. 1, a runaway. He passed the names to Moreno. Danny Pewitt, 6, drowned during summer swim camp, 1989. Nico Ramos, 7, vanished after changing into gym clothes. Locker key number 11, James Linwood, 8, found in a utility closet, cause of death, undetermined. Locker key number 12, Moreno froze. Lucas had locker number 14, she murmured. Number 13 was sealed off in 92, Haskins added. Claimed plumbing issues. No one ever looked. Get a warrant, she said. We're opening it. Back at the YMCA, Moreno stood before the corroded locker, a chain looped through the handle, padlocked and forgotten. She snapped it open with bolt cutters. Inside, only a sealed manila envelope remained, yellowed, brittle, with one chilling line in red ink. Mr. Private, do not destroy. Inside was a single sheet, lined paper, names typed with precision. N. Ramos, D. Puit, J. Linwood, L. Danner, blank, blank. Each name had a locker number, a grade level, a date, a final column labeled cleared. Only Lucas's line remained unchecked. They were keeping score, Haskins whispered. Or planning, Moreno replied, voice tight. Who the hell is Mr. Private? Hours later, at County Hall, a records clerk unearthed the original Monroe YMCA staff directory from 1994. One name circled in red, Marcus. Riot, assistant director of youth programs. He had resigned in 95, citing family health issues. No forwarding address, no trace. But in the fine print of a forgotten HR file, Moreno found more. He'd routinely scheduled after-hours sessions, had keys to maintenance and sub-basement panels. He knew the building's bones, and he used them. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away in the quiet suburbs of Wisconsin, a man named Marcus Riot stood at the window of a modest ranch home. His hand trembled as he held a glass of scotch. The local news replayed the story. Monroe YMCA? A locker key, a boy's name. He turned off the television and crossed the room to a baby monitor showing a hallway, a bedroom door faintly visible. A woman's voice drifted from the kitchen. Marcus, dinner's ready. He locked the hallway door behind him. Back in Monroe, Moreno met with FBI agents. This is active, she said firmly. We've got 4 names. 1 surviving timeline. This wasn't for ransom or ransom notes. These tapes were personal, private, customized. You think it was a ring? One agent asked. No, she replied. I think it was something worse. She held up a staff photo from 1994. In the back row, arms crossed, stood Marcus Riot, a smile that now read like a mask, but she didn't believe he worked alone. Later that evening, tape number 2 began restoration. On screen, Lucas sat fiddling with a plush toy, legs swinging lightly. A thinner, more nasal voice spoke now. If you're good, you can pick tonight's story. Lucas's voice trembled. I want to go home. The reply came colder. You are home now. Static. Then a third voice, lower, different. Is he ready? Moreno jerked upright. 2 voices, 2 men. Pull the audio, she ordered. Get voice analysis, and check every door Riot ever lived behind. The following morning, July 14th, in a quiet lounge at Green Ridge Retirement Community, Dana Danner sat with a coffee cooling in her hand. She was 61 now, her body slower, her bones fragile. But it wasn't the years that aged her. It was loss, grief that settled in her joints like winter frost. Most people thought the boy in her framed photos was a grandson. No one ever asked, but when the knock came that morning, she knew. Inside the interview room, Moreno gently introduced herself. Dana nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. Is this about my son? Moreno nodded. Yes, about Lucas. When Dana saw these swim trunks and towel in the evidence bags, the air left her lungs. Oh, God, she whispered, hands to her mouth. Her mind reeled, not just with grief, but memory. She could still see the gym bag she'd packed that morning, could still feel the kiss on his forehead before the carpool. Her voice broke. Where did you find them? Meanwhile, back at the YMCA, Haskins held a new evidence bag, a small, worn brass key, slightly bent, locker number faintly etched, 14. It had been hidden beneath the mattress. Why would he leave it? Haskins asked softly. Not as a mistake, not as a clue, as if he wanted it to be found. The evidence tech spoke quietly, but the weight of the question lingered in the sterile air. Why would he leave the key? Detective Haskins stared at the brass tag in the plastic bag, his brow furrowed in thought. Maybe, he said softly. Maybe he wanted to come back. Back at the station, Detective Moreno sifted through a storm of updates piled high across her desk. The FBI had enhanced the audio from tape number 2. The second voice, deeper, colder, had been isolated and run through the national database. No confirmed matches yet, but they were closing in. Meanwhile, a utility bill from 1995 had finally surfaced under Marcus Riot's name, an old address in Racine, Wisconsin. An agent had already been dispatched. Moreno exhaled, pressing her fingers against her temples, then flipped open Lucas's case file again. His school photo stared up at her, the way only childhood innocence can freeze in time. Crooked smile, 2 missing teeth, cheeks still flushed from playground laughter. The transcript from Dana Danner's interview sat beneath it. Lucas had hated swim class, said the locker room was too quiet, said he never wanted to change, always asked to keep his clothes on. Felt safer, Dana had said. Safer than what? Moreno had asked. But Dana had only stared at the wall, her voice falling away. He said there were shadows in there. Miles away in Racine, FBI agent Denise Yarrow watched from across the street as a man stepped out the back door of a beige house. He moved slowly, cautiously, like someone who had spent years trying not to be noticed. He wore gloves, even in the sweltering summer heat, and carried a black trash bag to the curb. Yarrow moved fast. Visual on target, she said into her earpiece, stepping forward. Mr. Rowan? Mark Rowan? The man froze. He turned, eyes darting past her toward the open street. Yarrow kept her tone even. You need to come with me. We have questions. About Monroe, Indiana. About the YMCA, His mouth opened, but no sound came. Then he ran. The chase lasted less than 4 blocks. Marcus stumbled behind a chain-link fence, hitting the pavement hard. Yarrow was on him in seconds, gun drawn but lowered. On the ground, she ordered. Hands behind your back. He didn't resist. As agents cuffed him, his voice cracked just once. I never hurt them, he whispered. I just cleaned up. Hours later, in Interrogation Room 1, Marcus Riot sat slouched, drenched in sweat. His voice had steadied, though his hands trembled slightly. I wasn't the one who took them, he said. I didn't choose the kids. That was someone else. Moreno leaned forward. But you built the room. You signed the receipts. You sealed the panel. I did what I was told, Riot murmured. Nah, I was scared. Scared of who? He hesitated. Then he leaned in, voice dropping. You already met him. You just don't know it yet. That night, Moreno stood with Haskins in the police archives. Dust shimmered in the sunlight, slicing through high windows. She pulled an old photo from the 1992 YMCA Christmas party. There, in the back row, stood Riot. Next to him, a man with a confident posture, graying hair, and a firm hand resting on Riot's shoulder. A name tag on his chest read Chuck D. Moreno flipped the photo. Charles Danner, handwritten in black ink. She froze. The name hit like a gut punch. Danner. Do you think they were related? Haskins asked. Moreno swallowed hard. I think he was Lucas's uncle. Across town, Dana Danner sat quietly on her porch, the brass key gripped tightly in her palm. Her mind had been racing since the visit. A memory surfaced uninvited. Her husband's brother, Charles Chuck. He'd always been affectionate with Lucas. Overly so. Too eager to volunteer for drop-offs, for rides. She had brushed it off, trusted him, but now she couldn't breathe. Back in the Monroe lab, tape number 23 had been converted and stabilized. On screen, Lucas sat huddled in the corner of that now infamous room, his stuffed bear beside him. He looked different. Not just scared, changed, worn down. Play it, Moreno said. The video started. A faint hum. Time code, September 24th, 1994. The room was unchanged. Fairy lights flickered overhead. Lucas was silent. Then the voice returned. Lucas, remember what we talked about. The boy shook his head. You promised, the voice coaxed. Good boys keep promises. I don't want to do this, Lucas whispered. Then a second voice, deeper, sharper, cut through the air. I said, get ready. The frame shifted. A man entered partially into view. Polo shirt, belt, slacks, a glint from his chest, his name tag, Chuck. Lucas screamed. The video cut. Moreno's voice was ice. Blow it up. Get me everything. Clothing tags, build, height. That's him. That's our connection. At the FBI office, side-by-side photos confirmed it. DMV photo. Charles Chuck Danner. YMCA board president, respected businessman, volunteer, the man who'd slipped through every crack in the system. That's him, Agent Keats confirmed. That's the man on tape 23. Moreno stared at the screen. And he was Lucas's uncle. Later, she confronted Riot again. This time, he looked broken. That's Danner, right? She asked, pointing to the still. Riot nodded. He chose the boys, he whispered. He said they were special, that no one would notice. You helped him, Moreno snapped. You filmed it. You built it. I didn't touch them, Riot stammered. He said it was sacred, like a gift. She slammed the file closed. He lied, and you let him. He didn't answer. Moreno stood stunned. Was this a cult? No, Riot muttered. Worse! It was a club. Detective Haskins dug deeper into old files. One more name surfaced. Derek Voss, age 6. Reported missing in 1985. Suspected runaway. Never found. In the witness box of the incident report, one name, C. Danner. That evening, Dana Danner found a shoebox in the back of her closet. Birthday cards, drawings, a photo, Lucas outside the YMCA, red trunks, holding his bear, smiling. In the background, just barely visible, stood a man in a polo shirt and sunglasses. She turned the photo over. Her handwriting, July 6th, 1994. First day of swim class. Uncle Chuck dropped him off. She sat down, the photo shaking in her hands. He'd been there from the beginning. Moreno laid the photo on her desk. It's him, she said. He had the access, the authority, the trust. He controlled the locker assignments. Lucas was never random. He was the final name. And the only one he didn't finish. The smile on the boy's gravestone had never faded, eternally bright, unaware of the darkness that followed. Haskins rose slowly from the cemetery grass, hands on his hips, the morning air heavy with dew and the rising breath of another summer day. It was the kind of day when once upon a time the pool would have been filled with laughter, children splashing, Lucas among them, Nico, James, Danny. But they never had a chance. Back at the Monroe PD, Moreno stood in the evidence review room, surrounded by a growing grid of VHS tapes, now digitized and cataloged. Analysts had confirmed audio in 32 tapes, visible interaction in 17, and most gut-wrenching physical abuse in at least 12. Lucas appeared in 48, and now, Nico Ramos. His face had surfaced in 2 early tapes. His name was never on the suspect lists. His file had been closed, labeled a runaway. But now they knew the truth. He was taken, and filmed, his mother had never stopped believing. At a quiet farmhouse, 40 minutes outside Monroe, Mrs. Enns Ramos took the envelope with trembling hands. 2 stills, Nico playing with blocks. Nico curled on a mattress, the same room, same pink walls, same scribbled corners. The label read, Nico Room Day 2. Tears filled her eyes. I always knew, she whispered. He didn't run. He didn't run. Back in Interrogation Room 1, Marcus Riot had stopped lying. He no longer denied the tapes, no longer claimed ignorance. Instead, he offered something darker. There were more. More locations. More children. They moved them sometimes, he said, between buildings. Buildings? Moreno echoed. He nodded. There was a second site, not YMCA owned. He called it the dry pool. Did you go there? Once, Riot said, eyes downcast. It was different. No toys, no lights. It wasn't for playing. Moreno leaned forward. Were there others? Yes, Riot answered. One was named Tenko. He handled the cameras. He filmed things. Even Danner wouldn't. FBI agents combed through licensing records. Tenko Lighting and Supply, active from 1990 to 1997, registered to Riverside Industrial Park, Building 6B. The paperwork had long since dissolved, but the address remained. They moved in. The building was a corpse of its former self. Concrete shell, graffiti, rot. Inside, time had frozen. Tarps still hung like stage curtains, film reels rusted on workbenches, and at the far wall a door painted pale pink. One phrase scrawled in childish lettering, Princess Room, Volume 62 in progress. They breached the door. No comfort lived in this place, no softness. A metal frame bolted to the floor, a camera angled precisely, and beneath the bed, bones, a small skull, tiny ribs, a child's jaw, 2 baby teeth intact. Moreno turned away. Bag everything. I want ID. Fast. Later that night, Moreno met Dana Danner again. There was another site, she told her gently. Charles. He helped run it. Dana didn't cry. Not this time. She sat still, the old photo of Lucas in her lap. He always offered to drive. Said he liked the time with him. I thought it was sweet. My husband thought it was generous. She paused. We didn't think. That was the problem. What they did, Moreno said, wasn't your fault. But I let him near my child, Dana said quietly. And now all I can think about is what happened after the last tape. That tape, number 48, was already queued up. Lucas sat motionless on the mattress. Vacant eyes, folded hands. A voice, Danner's, drifted in like fog. Do you remember the promise, Lucas? Silence. Today's the last one. After this, you get to go outside. The boy blinked. His voice was barely audible. I want to see my mom. Another pause, colder. She's not ready for you yet. Lucas turned slowly and looked directly into the lens, and the tape cut to black. Moreno stood frozen. That frame, that look, he wasn't just looking. He knew. He knew someone might watch, someone might care, and maybe someone might come. At a cheap motel 2 counties away, Charles Danner lit a cigarette with trembling hands, a duffel bag by his side. Inside, cash, tapes, a worn photo of Lucas. He stared at it, then tucked it into his wallet and slipped out the door. He was still running. The next morning, back at the Monroe YMCA's East Wing, a rusted locker groaned open. The smell was unmistakable. Decay. Rot. History trying to speak. Inside, a warped plastic tote. Mold blackened. A red child's jacket crumpled in a corner. Faded writing near the collar. Nico. Moreno's stomach turned, but there were no bones. The tote was too small. He wasn't stored here, the text said. This was a marker. A trophy. Beside it, a photo. Lucas and Nico on the swim deck, smiling. Behind them, Charles Danner, his face deliberately cut from the frame, Audio tape number 19 revealed more. With enhanced filters, a second voice emerged. Nasal, deliberate. Clear locker 13. First move the red one to dry pool. No more talking in the echo zone. He knew he was being recorded, Haskins said. That's someone who understands microphones. Tenko, Moreno replied. Or someone else. The database filled in the blanks. Matthew Tenko, former AV contractor, linked to schools, prisons, the YMCA, arrested in '99, charges dropped, house fire in 2003, declared dead, no body recovered, and now? Fingerprints found on the dry pool camera gear. Partial, aged, but matching Tenko. Moreno pressed the photo of Locker 13 in front of Riot. He stared at the name stitched into the jacket. They told me it was handled, he said quietly. Who? Tenko. Said Nico was too loud. Couldn't risk it. And when he died? They called it clearing. Moreno updated the victim board. Nico, Locker 13, James Linwood, V33/JL, one name still circled, unsure, undone, Derek Voss, 1985, still missing. That night at Green Ridge, Dana opened the door without a word. Moreno carried a box. Inside, Lucas's bear, torn bow tie, restitched by hand, uneven. Dana held it to her chest. I used to patch this for him every week, she whispered. Moreno sat across from her. We haven't found remains. Dana nodded. But you found where he lived? Yes. Then you found enough. Outside in the FBI forensics trailer, a tech called out, We got prints on the camera gear. Old, degraded, but they match Tenko. Another name, another connection. The web wasn't just tangled, it had been carefully spun, and now, finally, the world was beginning to see it. In the flickering hum of the FBI forensics trailer, a tech called out, We found blood under the floor panel. Human, a moment later, a buzzer sounded, the screen flashed. Match found. Subject, Derek Voss. At a long-abandoned lot where Matthew Tenko's house once stood, cadaver dogs barked into the scorched twilight. They converged near the southern edge, where ash blanketed the cracked soil. There, the team unearthed a scorched plastic crate. Inside, burned VHS tapes and bones. Small, unmistakably that of a child. The fire hadn't just consumed the home, it had concealed yet another room. The cover-up had begun long before anyone realized. At FBI headquarters, a new list was written across the whiteboard. Lucas Danner, survived. Fate unknown. Nico Ramos, deceased. Danny Puett, presumed drowned. Case reopened. James Linwood, deceased. Cause undetermined. Derek Voss, DNA confirmed. Unknown female, Locker 7, status unaccounted. Detective Haskins stared at the final entry. Who was she? Moreno stood still. Then quietly, That's the next door we knock on. The surveillance footage from a motel 2 counties east confirmed their growing fear. A silver town car pulled in. No plates. A man, cap, glasses, no luggage, checked into room 217 under the name Ray Carlton. He paid cash 5:43 p.m. Moreno glanced up. We're close. Keats nodded grimly. But if he runs again? Moreno stepped outside, staring at the horizon. Then we don't let him. The next morning, Marcus Rio sat under the stark light of the interview room, visibly hollowed out by sleep deprivation and mounting guilt. His fingers trembled as they gripped a coffee cup, the ring staining the steel tabletop. I was only supposed to record, he rasped. Set the lighting. Keep the sound clean. Moreno slid a still photo across the table. Lucas, 5 years old, curled on the pink mattress, thumb in mouth, eyes devoid of sparkle. Danner wanted volume, Rio said, voice cracking. He called it an archive. Said it had meaning. Cabinet, Moreno echoed. Catalogs. Logs. All labeled Princess Room, Rio whispered. But the files used codes. I never opened them. I couldn't. At FBI headquarters, The task force gathered around the briefing board. Moreno took the floor, laser-focused. We now have 5 confirmed child victims, 2 sites, 3 perpetrators, Danner, Riot, and Tenko, who may not be dead, and we've confirmed an unknown 4th voice. Keats stepped forward. Interpol just confirmed. That phrase, Princess File, it's been cropping up in Europe, underground networks, always tied to confinement. Silence followed. This didn't start with Danner, Moreno said, and it won't end with him. That afternoon, Haskins examined a red notebook labeled M. Riot, 1996. Inside, fragmented confessions, scrawled entries, pages that bled fear. July 3rd, 1995. He brought in a new one, smaller. Locker 7. Said it would be quick. I didn't ask. August 1st. She screamed for days. He told me to soundproof the floor. August 3rd. She's gone now, but the walls still hum. I think I'm losing it. And on the final page, there are more of us. Digging into old YMCA expansion permits, Moreno discovered the origin. An unfiled memo. 1992. Below-ground storage request. Signed, M. Riot. Co-signed, C. Danner. They had begun building the vault 2 years before Lucas vanished. That evening, Riot gave a final statement with his lawyer present. Calm, almost numb, he confessed. Danner paid me. Promised I could direct, design the set. At first, I didn't know. By the time I did, I was complicit. He described the princess room like a stage. Every child a performance. Every tape cataloged. Each room versioned. He had rules, ages, behaviors, rituals. It wasn't about money. It was about purity, control. He didn't see them as children, he said finally, just roles. Operation Princess Room was launched. Danner was officially declared a fugitive. His profile warned of psychological manipulation, religious disguises, and ties to recreation centers in small towns. He was last seen on July 15th, driving a silver Lincoln with new vanity plates, REVHOPE gas station footage. Showed him in a clerical collar, carrying a sermon book and a lunchbox. Is there a church nearby? He asked the clerk with a smile. He left a generous tip, then disappeared. Back at Green Ridge, Dana Danner sat on the edge of her bed, Lucas's bear in her lap. The bow had started to tear again. She didn't fix it. She scrolled through the latest alerts and stopped. FBI issues nationwide warning. Child predator posing as traveling minister. She enlarged the photo. Charles Danner. Older. Smiling. Like nothing had ever happened. The next morning, July 19th, just outside Gann, Indiana, Moreno arrived at the abandoned grounds of Camp Morning Trails. Chain-link fences sagged like tired limbs. The camp had closed in 1998 due to maintenance issues. The pool had never been drained, only sealed. Moreno raised her eyes to the overgrown lot, poured concrete over water, a cover-up. Hours later, ground radar pinged a chamber. Hazmat teams drilled. By midday, the floor gave way to a hollow space below. It wasn't a pool, it was a room. Pink-painted walls. Storybooks wilted on a shelf. A child-sized bed frame bolted to the concrete. Crayon scrawled across the wall, Lucy, room V47. Her name was Lucy Hightower, 6 years old. Reported missing in 1997 by a babysitter who later disappeared. Case closed as a custody dispute. No Amber Alert. Now her name was written in red. This wasn't just Monroe, Moreno whispered. This wasn't just Lucas. Haskins nodded. It was a circuit. A system. Moreno pointed at the number on the wall. Room V47. That's 47 rooms, 47 tapes. And he was still building. Later, an unmarked tape was discovered. July 16th, 1997. The frame shook before focusing on a little girl, blonde, cross-legged, clutching a plastic tiara. Lucy, a man's voice said softly. Not Danner, not Rio. What's the rule when someone new arrives? Lucy answered without fear. No screaming. Smile for the light. Moreno placed the still image in front of Rio. That's not mine, he said quickly. but I remember her. Danner said she was too smart. Made eye contact. It scared him. Why? Rio looked down. Because she saw him. That afternoon, the coroner's office confirmed. Remains found beneath the camp pool were female, approximately 6 years old. Lucy High Tower. The room, the tiara, the books. She had been waiting all this time. Now, finally, someone had seen her. The tiara was cracked, its plastic jewel missing from the center. Lichen crusted its edges. But it wasn't the object in her hand that haunted Moreno. It was the wall behind it. Stick figures drawn in crayon. A red bed, a crown floating above 3 tiny heads. In shaky lettering, a single line. She promised to come back for me. The writing ended abruptly, as if snatched mid-thought. At Monroe PD's Digital Composite Lab, technicians overlaid footage from dozens of rooms, different years, different victims, but the alignment was perfect. Same measurements, same lighting, same placement of the mattress. Someone had provided a blueprint. These rooms weren't spontaneous. They were designed, reproduced, scaled. Meanwhile, Dana Danner sat in the dim light of her retirement apartment watching old home videos on a cracked screen. Lucas running through the yard with a balloon tied to his wrist, laughing at a birthday cake. But something caught her eye. There, behind the fence line, a man in the shadows. She paused, zoomed in, blurry face, but the shirt, the YMCA badge, the red lanyard, just like the one in the locker photo. "You were always watching," she whispered. At the Joint Task Force briefing, Moreno stood beside a projected map, now pinned with 5 red dots. Monroe, Riverside, Gowan, Stillwater, Winfield, each a site, each a tomb. "This was never about one town," she said. "Oh, it's a circuit. Regional, maybe national." And Danner wasn't just participating, he was training them. Keats stepped forward. He distributed blueprints, protocols. He taught others how to build innocence overwrought. Moreno circled Stillwater. If he trained them, he may still be visiting them. Hours later, grainy surveillance footage caught Danner at a Missouri rest stop. Wearing a priest's collar, carrying a child's backpack. He bought a paper map, bottled water, then with a red pen circled a small town in Iowa. Fairchild. A property search confirmed it, purchased under a false name, Ray Carlton, the same alias he used at the motel. Moreno stared out the window. "We're not chasing him anymore," she said. "We're walking into his next build." The daycare sat at the edge of a decaying cornfield. Closed for a decade, plastic slides warped by sun, grass-splitting pavement. But inside, it was pristine. Fresh laminate. Crayon drawings neatly taped to the walls, reading corner, snack spot. Only one set of footprints led in and out. In the basement, they found what shouldn't exist. No blueprint showed stairs. But beneath the floorboards, there it was, another princess room. Clean, too clean. Mattress still wrapped in plastic. No stains, no toys, no chains, just a name. Ally. Written in red crayon. A pair of jelly sandals waited by the wall. One still had the price tag. "He's preparing it," Moreno said. On the table, a spiral-bound manual. Homemade, titled Program Guide, Phase 4/Carlton. It wasn't hiding anymore. It was a system. Typed pages, detailed floor plans, child psychology scripts, behavior modification phases. One entry chilled her to the core. Always begin with trust. Introduce isolation slowly. Phase 2. Reinforce identity. Princess, angel, explorer. He wasn't just taking them, he was erasing them. At the FBI's morning briefing, Keats laid it out plainly. Based on this timeline, the next abduction would have been within a week. Moreno nodded. And this time there were no mistakes. Then came the fingerprint report. Mattress fibers. A hair? Female. Age range 5 to 7. No match yet. But someone had already been in that room. Later that day, a call came into the Keokuk County Sheriff's Office. An older woman. soft voice. "He came to our church." "Reverend Ray," he said, "brought a little girl. Blonde, quiet. Said she was his niece." "Did he say her name?" the officer asked. "I think he called her Allie." A missing child case surfaced immediately. Allison Ali Dwyer, 6 years old, disappeared 3 days earlier from her grandmother's farmhouse in Burlington, Iowa. No Amber Alert had been issued. Moreno stared at the file. She's real, and she was with him. The FBI launched an interstate manhunt. Target, Charles Danner, alias Ray Carlton. Vehicle, silver Lincoln Town Car. Threat level, critical. Hours later, a sheriff's dash cam spotted the Lincoln, parked behind an abandoned hardware store 8 miles from the daycare. It was cold. Recently abandoned. A doll sat in the back seat, a tiara beside it. On the driver's seat, a handwritten note, "She was too loud. I'll try again." K-9 units searched the nearby ravine. By 8:01 p.m., they found her, huddled under a tarp, bruised, dehydrated, but alive. When Moreno reached her, Allie whispered, "Is the room gone?" Later, in the PD's holding room, Allie sat wrapped in a blanket. She didn't ask questions. She just held the bear they gave her. "He made me pretend," she said. "Said I was going to be someone else, like the princesses." Then she looked up, but I told him I wanted to go home. Moreno's voice was barely a breath. "You're going home now." Allie nodded, then looked at the bear in her lap. "Do they all get to go home?" Moreno didn't answer, because most never did. The next morning, the FBI cataloged their final box from the Riverside lot. Hidden between 2 labeled tapes was 1 unmarked cassette, never logged, never referenced. They played it. The room was wrong. No bed, no drawings. The footage shook, then settled. A boy stood in the center. "My name is Jeremy. I don't know where I am." The voice behind the camera wasn't Danner, wasn't Rio. It was a woman. "It's okay, Jeremy," she said gently, "just like we practiced." Then, static. Cross-referencing the name revealed a match, Jeremy Kellen, 10 years old, missing since 1990. Case closed as a runaway, but Jeremy was never in the princess logs. He didn't fit the age range. Something else was going on. Forensics isolated audio beneath the tape. Footsteps, chains. The woman's voice dropped to a whisper. "Hurry! We only have a few minutes." In the corner of a mirrored toy, they spotted a reflection. Not Danner. A woman. Wire-rim glasses. Dark hair. Beside her, another child watching. Moreno scanned personnel files and found her. Evelyn Parrish, Assistant Director, Goshen YMCA, 1987 to 1991. Fired after parent complaints. Relocated. Vanished. But a utilities record showed a P.O. box still active in Iowa 3 months ago. That evening, Monroe PD received a voicemail. An older woman. Trembling voice. "He wasn't the first. Charles. He copied us. He made it worse. Jeremy wasn't supposed to remember. That wasn't the plan. I never hurt them. I just prepared them." No name, but the voice matched. Evelyn Parrish. And on the FBI's expanding map, another red node was added. The beginning, and possibly the blueprint for everything that followed. The theory had always pointed toward Danner, but the architecture, the language, the rituals, those originated with someone else. Evelyn Parrish, she didn't just influence Danner, she shaped him, crafted the philosophy that turned cages into classrooms. Where Danner industrialized it, Parrish authored it. And now, with the confirmation of her voice on old training tapes, the task force finally understood. This wasn't just predation, it was ideology. She wasn't just grooming kids, Moreno said to Keats. She was grooming collaborators. Yes, they returned to Jeremy's frame. The boy's eyes, captured decades ago, held something none of the others did, awareness. Perhaps that's why he was never logged. Perhaps that's why he survived. In a forgotten library archive, Keats uncovered the final clue. An unnamed boy found wandering near Camp Morning Trail in 1991. No ID, no name. He'd only said one word, mirror. The system called him John Doe 47G. Jeremy survived, Keats whispered. A call to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children confirmed it. A boy, renamed, adopted, now living in Michigan. He had contacted them last year. He remembered a room without a door. At his apartment in Lansing, Jeremy Ken turned off the news. The headlines screamed of hidden chambers and secret rooms. He walked to a drawer, retrieved an old photograph, his 10-year-old self, standing beside a woman in wire glasses. The edges were torn. But the memory wasn't. He picked up the phone. I remember, he said. The next day, Jeremy sat across from Agent Keats. I thought it was a hospital, he said. She told me my parents were in danger, that she was keeping me safe. He gripped a coffee cup, hands trembling. She wasn't keeping me safe. She made me call her mother, said she worked at a place that made children better. Not healed, better. There were rules, no clocks, no mirrors, no corners. You could only speak if you said the phrase, "May I be seen?" He paused. She called it refinement. And then he said the words that shifted the entire investigation. Danner came later. The timeline was restructured. Parrish ran the earliest behavioral rooms, places that blurred morality with control. Danner joined her in 1990. Tanko brought in the cameras, Riot, the filing system. The princess rooms evolved from Evelyn Parrish's refinement chambers, and Jeremy had written it. All down. In a notebook hidden in a shoebox for 3 decades, he documented it all. May 12th, she told me to rename myself. I chose Gray. July 7th, Danner visited, smelled like bleach and leather, told me I had camera eyes. She laughed like it was a compliment. August 20th, she said I graduated. No one came to pick me up. I walked in the woods, just kept walking. At 3:03 p.m., the FBI confirmed it. The anonymous voicemail belonged to Evelyn Parrish. Same cadence, same tone. From a training tape in 1989. She was alive. She was moving. An alert came from Kansas City. A gas station clerk reported an elderly woman with wire glasses and a blank-faced child. A Bezeg van. Paid cash. The vehicle was found abandoned hours later near a rest stop. In the restroom, a folded note. You never understood the point. It was never about control. It was about clarity. The noise of the world must be removed. Signed, Mother P. Later that night, Jeremy met Dana Danner. I'm not your son, he said gently, but I was in the same kind of room. Dana took his hand. You made it out. That means something. Jeremy nodded, eyes damp. I remembered my name. That's how I broke it. Maybe Lucas did too. In a Missouri cornfield, the second van revealed its horrors. Files, maps, tiaras. A folder labeled Candidates: Phase 5. 10 photos, all children, all within 100 miles. They were already being watched. At a late-night press conference, the FBI made it official. Operation Princess Room has uncovered a psychological conditioning ring spanning at least 4 states. This wasn't just abduction, it was institutionalized behavior modification. And it wasn't over. Now, back at his apartment, Jeremy turned on an old tape recorder. My name is Jeremy Kalin. If you find this... I remembered. He rewound, pressed play again. I remembered. And for the first time in decades, it didn't hurt to say. In Minnesota, agents reached an abandoned school for the deaf. It had never been formally closed, only reclassified. The schematics led them to the basement. Behind the boiler, a passage, stickers on the walls, peeling paint, crayon suns, and at the bottom, a door. Phase 0 was carved into the steel. Inside, a room like no other. Gray, cold, no pretense of innocence. Reinforced walls, hidden wiring, a bed, fresh restraints. They had missed someone. In the control room, a blinking screen marked 4 names. Lucas, Allie, Jeremy, Sarah. Only one signal remained active. Sarah G. recovered audio logs, whispered the final horror. Phase 0 isn't about the child. It's about the handler. When the subject begins to remember, it means it's time to begin again. A locker revealed Polaroids, target profiles, a new name, Sarah G. Her address, Des Moines. Reported missing the night before. The agents found her in a storage unit, locked inside a crate, wrist bruises, holding a paper tiara. He said, I'd be the last one. Hours later, Sarah sat with Dana and Jeremy. Dana brushed her hair, Jeremy handed her a bear. Through the glass, Moreno whispered to Keats, "We didn't find the end. We found the beginning." The final report was grim. Survivors, 3. Victims, at least 5. Fugitives, 2. Suspects, too many. Blueprints were still out there, protocols still being taught, and someone, somewhere, was still building. At Green Ridge, Dana opened a box she hadn't touched in years. Lucas's drawings, his YMCA keychain. She added something new, a newspaper clipping. Girl found alive in hidden chamber. FBI uncovers global network. She placed the box back on the shelf. This time, she locked it. In the forest near Wausau, Wisconsin, Charles Danner walked alone. Minister's collar, hat low, he stopped at a tree. Opened his notebook. Noise corrupts, silence reveals. He traced the final line. The foundation begins with 1. He looked to the horizon. Somewhere out there was a child, a place, a plan. He closed the book and smiled. Months later, in Lansing, Michigan, Jeremy Ken stood at the window. The wind moved the leaves like whispers. But this time, he wasn't haunted. He was dreaming forward. In the dream, he was barefoot, walking away from the woods, not gray anymore. Just Jeremy. Back in Monroe, the YMCA reopened. The pool was gone. The basement sealed. In its place, a classroom for at-risk youth. A plaque hung near the door, in memory of Lucas Danner. May every child who walks through this door feel seen, safe, and free. Dana sat among the families, among the survivors. Even Sarah smiled. The ceiling didn't feel heavy anymore. December 25th. National headlines erupted. Princess Room Network uncovered. Global investigation launched. A survivor from Brazil posted anonymously, "My room had no name, but I remember the bear." Others replied, from Kansas, Norway, Maryland, Italy. I was in one too. And finally, in a room without time or name, a little girl sat on the floor, crayons in hand. She looked up. Her voice was clear. "May I be seen?" No one answered, but she smiled anyway, because somewhere, someone finally would.